This is Paul Robinson, of course, from Construct Reach. So happy you guys are here with us today. And, it's just been a pleasure for us to provide these distance learning resources, if you will, for kind of the second semester. And so we're coming down to the end of the school year, of course. And so it's been a pleasure for us to be able to provide these conversations. We've got very good feedback. And we're closing it out for this school year. And we've got our last panel discussion with Nathan Kowallis, who's on from McCarthy. He's calling out of Dallas, Texas, a city that I love. And it's cool because this is like full circle. So one of the first construction companies that I had an internship with when I was in college was McCarthy. And so to be able to kind of complete this full circle and close it out with McCarthy is pretty cool. So thanks, Nate, for joining us today, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So it's been a pleasure, man. Like over these past 5 weeks, I mean, we've had some very, very good dialogue and just allowing us to provide industry insights. So, of course, there's these unprecedented times that we found ourselves in. There's a new set of unknowns. And for us to be able to provide some sort of clarity, some sort of insight and direction for young people who are transitioning into young adulthood. And with young adulthood comes, entering into the workforce as well and having to, decide upon what career they're going to pursue or what sector they're going to pursue. And so to provide these resources and insight for those who are considering a career in the construction industry has been huge. And so, we're going to close it out pretty good. We're going to have a very good conversation today with an esteemed panelist, Nate Kowallis, who's going to begin to kind of share just some things that his company is doing as we are navigating through this COVID-19 pandemic. But first, before we get into the specifics about kind of what the company is doing, Nate, share just a little bit about your career journey and how you got to where you are.
Well, I would say it started long before I probably could even walk. I always was into just tinkering with stuff, building things, taking it apart. My mom would probably would attest to that. Taking things apart was something that she did not appreciate very much. But as I got into school, the sciences, the maths, there wasn't a whole lot of technology, I would say, back then, as we know it is today. But really, the STEM focus of my education led me to kind of just perk my interest in this type of work. When I was about 10 years old, my dad decided to, rather than moving into a bigger house, we had a family of 5 with only a 2-bedroom house. Rather than moving, he said, hey, why don't we just add on the backside, add in a couple bedrooms, add in a living room. And my dad kind of grew up doing construction. He moved into facilities management, but he drew everything. And we built everything. And I was his right-hand man. So really getting the experience as a 10-year-old led me to then kind of get my first job out of school, which was framing houses. And the rest is history, Paul. I mean, it turned into an education that for getting a degree in construction management at BYU. And then I started with McCarthy in Las Vegas, was there for about 7 years, built some pretty interesting stuff in Las Vegas, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Albuquerque for a couple years. And about 3 years ago, made the trek over to Texas, and hopefully this is home for a while.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. That's amazing. Just being able to go into a field that you've always had a knack for, right? And being able to operate, in an industry where you have a skill set around, you have gifting around, and so I'm pretty sure your career has not necessarily felt like work, but you've been able to pursue kind of full time what you have an interest in. And so I think that's very cool, man. Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
Good. So, Nate, as we find ourselves in this COVID-19 pandemic and, with a lot of things that we were accustomed to just changing so much, man, kind of speak through a little bit, what your organization is experiencing or what you're doing as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, a lot, right? I mean, I think most of the construction industry is we're feeling the same things. I think early on when when this started, mid to late March, for most of us, it was very reactive. We were reacting to a legit crisis experience that we needed to get our hands around. And I think if there's any industry that has the ability to be flexible and really assess risk, um, find out plans to mitigate that risk and then execute it's the construction industry. We are not we are used to dealing with risk on our job sites. Safety is the most important thing that all of us have to do, specifically at McCarthy. It's absolutely number one. So I think what we're experiencing is there's been a lot of adjustments in the field, but by and large, it's been beneficial. We're deemed an essential business. The construction industry has been deemed essential, and it's been fortunate for us to be able to continue our business and not be as impacted as, unfortunately, some other industries have been.
Yeah. And I think that's very good insight, because when you think about who our primary audience is, as we've been doing these series, it's been for educators and it's been for students, who are transitioning into young adulthood and pursuing careers. And a lot of times when we just listen to the news or different media outlets, we're hearing that this pandemic is causing a huge disruption to the economy. But of course, under the umbrella of the economy, there's a lot of different sectors, right? And so to be able to just kind of pull out and pluck out construction and spotlight that and speak to that in the midst of this pandemic and saying, hey, construction has still been considered to be an essential part of our economy. And for the most part, it hasn't stopped. And companies are still hiring, and there's things that are still happening, opportunities are still available. And so for us to bring that out and provide that clarity and insight, educators are in a position to speak to their students, and then students tuning in are able to, pretty much kind of, part and parcel, if you will, and kind of get, the construction industry specifically updated and just kind of pull it out of the context of, okay, well, the economy is upside down. So it provides them, a little bit of a pathway, a little bit of insight as to how they continue to move forward. So that's very good to hear, and that's something that we have been hearing over the series, is that, construction is still considered to be essential. And so I think that's very good. Right. And so good. So when you think about kind of what, and we can kind of go either way, whichever way kind of leads into it better. But, I know in our pre-conversations, you were talking about what you guys are doing specifically, maybe around safety and things of that nature, because you spoke to it a little bit in terms of risk. So yeah, let's go there, and talk through, kind of what you guys are doing from a safety standpoint. I know you got a chance to mention how it's not necessarily around just the PPE, but maybe being more intentional with just the safety and how people are feeling during this time, because we know that it's hitting different people and different households in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're not immune to risk management when it comes to safety. So the construction industry in particular has developed processes in which to assess our risk and create a plan to mitigate that risk for the safety of everybody on our job site. And that at McCarthy is the most important thing that we do every day. So the first thing we did in response to this was our leadership was on the phone with doctors every morning, talking through what had changed a day before. I mean, things were changing late March, early April. Things were changing by the hour. We had executive orders. We had county judges that were, throwing things left and right. We had governors. It was chaos, right? But what we were able to do, we said, look, if this is a health crisis, let's talk to the professionals in the healthcare world. So we talked to healthcare professionals, and if at any time we felt that there was something that was not safe for us to be doing what we do as a business, we would have made those decisions. But luckily, based on the processes and protocols that we were able to put in place, we were be able to create an environment for people to be safe. So temperature screenings on job sites. I'm sure some of your other series we've talked about, what that looks like. Added hygiene practices, making sure that we have enough hand wash stations, the face coverings, the social distancing.
Yeah.
All of those things are the tactical nature that we put in place. Um, Company-wide, we put in a best practices platform where people around the country, we're a nationwide builder, so we're building in out of 14 different offices in the whole country. So, being able to have somebody in Southern California help us in Dallas understand a unique thing about, hey, when I wear this mask, my goggles fog up. How do I get it through that? So we use the best practice platform for that. One unique thing that we also did was on one of our healthcare jobs. It was in the center of Dallas. And that was the epicenter really of the response for Dallas. And right next to our job site was the testing facility, one of the first ones in Texas.
Wow.
And they put that up, and you could imagine the anxiety of our workers and our craft and the people near our job sites of just, what does this mean to me? So, in response to that, we asked the hospital if they could bring somebody to come talk to our crews. And they brought the vice president of infection control, and she shared with us the reality. You're hearing stuff on TV, you're hearing all these different things, and we just wanted to get them comfortable with what the truth was from a healthcare professional. Yeah. And that really helped ease the tension of the people on the job site. And that was really when we started seeing our workforce improve. We had a manpower dip on that job site for a little bit. So that adjusted. But, you mentioned how our people feel. And that was, at the job site. They're right there in it. So one of the things that we did was we used Microsoft Teams as a collaboration platform for our projects and our staff as a whole. And we set up a page specifically where our teams could come in and they could collaborate. They could share, hey, we just hit a huge milestone on our job site. Hey, we just completed a job site. Hey, we just won another job. Because during this time, there's uncertainty, there's gray clouds, and we wanted to make sure those successes were being highlighted as well.
Yeah. No, that's good, man, to be intentional about things that are still worth celebrating, if you will,
Absolutely.
I mean, you do. Yeah.
It is what drives the culture of organizations. And we have a very strong culture here. And that is important to me and our leadership, is to make sure that everybody feels like we're doing everything we can to deal with the situation, but also make sure people feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. That's great. So talk a little bit about how, the industry is coming together collectively during this time. Maybe it's sharing best practices, as you mentioned earlier, especially in the beginning kind of stages of this, in March and in early April, where things were seeming to change by the hour. Talk to me a little bit about how the industry was kind of coming together to maybe put in best practices or keep each other abreast about how to move forward.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we can learn is that this is bigger than any one company. I mean, this is bigger than one country for that matter, right? So we deal with competitors every day. There's contractors that compete with us on work all day long. We win some, we lose some. But deep down, we have relationships with our competitors. And what we were able to do is establish peer groups where we would meet together, the leadership of certain firms, as well as trade partners. And we would come together on a call once a week early on. And we would just talk through, what are you seeing? What are you doing on your job site? What have you done in your office? Hey, when you had a case, how did you react? And it gave us a platform to talk to each other and to share really lessons learned, so that I wasn't having to learn on my own, and my peers weren't forced to learn on their own. We could have a group that we could collaborate with, because, like I said, we all are together in this. We all want our industry to continue to be able to be in business, but to do it safely during these times.
Yeah.
And for us to unite and have similar practices, that enabled kind of the second part of this, is it enabled our industry groups, our associations, the AGCs, the ABCs, the associations that help support us and advocate for us, they were able to get face time with the county judges, the governors, those folks who are making decisions on behalf of our industry, and show them what we're doing, right? And to give them the data behind how we're collectively coming together for the safety of the industry. And I think that was huge in being able to sway people to, or at least help them understand that this is real, but yet we're taking it very seriously and it's important to us.
Yeah, no, that's very good, man. And I love what you said. It's recognizing that it's bigger than us. And so when you're tackling things that are bigger than yourself, of course, you need the brain trust, you need the support, you need to lock arms, with others. And I think that's what we've seen, take place. I think that's one of the things that's actually come to the forefront in a very positive way, is the collaboration that's been taking place to navigate through this pandemic, because it's affected us all. And so, I mean, even looking at companies that typically don't produce, right, PPE, being able to do that now, and then just looking at things from a construction industry standpoint and saying that, hey, we've got the relationships that were there, and it's just about leaning more into these relationships during this time to see how we can collectively move forward, and learn from one another, so that we can continue to put ourselves, not just our companies, but our industry, which we all get a chance to benefit from. How do we keep that sustainable and moving forward, and creating opportunities and still maintaining the health and safety of individuals who are in and those who are set to come in. And so that's awesome, man. That's good. It's good. No, very good conversation. So, when you think about this pandemic, of course, it's really turned everything upside down, but we've had different things, maybe not in my lifetime, but it depends on what generation you talk to, where if you've lived through certain things, right, you're able to see how you come out on the other side, right? And so although we're going through this right now, and there's dark days and dark clouds or what have you, there is another side to this. And so when you think about kind of on the other side of this pandemic, like, how do you foresee the construction industry being? Do you foresee a lot of the business practices that maybe were amplified during this time remain in place?
Yeah, I would say first, I would say if I knew what was going to happen, I'd probably be able to consult and make a lot more money than maybe what I'm doing now. But
or an educated guess.
But I think in all seriousness, Paul, you have to have a vision for what's going to be on the other side of this. And our CEO, through all of this, has put out weekly videos to the whole organization, and really kind of walking through first kind of what we're doing tactically, but then also looking and helping us see that there is a vision, there is a future. And if we're not learning from what we're going through right now, then we're not growing.
Yep.
So I think some of those things, I think we've learned, construction, when you're dealing with a national company, you do a lot of travel. And
yes,
I think naturally we've become accustomed, and we've been able to function in a virtual setting like we are right now, right? And we're able to be productive. So I think we're going to see, unfortunately, I think we're going to see some less travel, which I think for our people is good. For our aviation partners who we build projects for, it might not be as beneficial. But I think specifically to construction, though, Paul, I think there are going to be some practices that are going to stick on job sites. And I think there are going to be some things that we're going to have to consider more. One of those being prefabrication, right? So having stuff prefabricated, and we're doing this right now. We've been doing it for several years, but enhancing that prefabrication component of our job sites to limit the amount of people that are on job sites. To do it with less people in a controlled environment creates better quality and safety. And I think amid everything we're going through, we have to consider that as an alternative moving forward.
Yeah. No, it's well said, man. That's good. And it does. It sounds like, McCarthy has just been very intentional from the top down, which is very good, to making sure that, you guys are being present really and engaged and in tune, to how this could be affecting, you know, people on different levels, and putting things in place to actually kind of have practical things to lead people through. But, you mentioned it, and it's just very important. It's just the importance of vision, because it puts the present into context. And so now why you do what you do. And if you have that vision there, you can speak to that present and what people are currently doing, or best practices that you're currently rolling out. And it's not necessarily an I don't know, but it's, hey, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and this will lead us to where we desire to go based on what we're experiencing right now. And so it's very good, man, that you mentioned that. Yeah, very good,
Exactly.
very good. So cool. No, great dialogue, great conversation. So when you think about, the budding young adults, right? Who are on the verge of entering into this industry, what advice would you have for young people right now?
Man, I still consider myself a young person, actually. So I would say, and we talk to high school kids all the time. We talk to college kids all the time, and I think the most important thing, and I alluded to it earlier, you kind of mentioned it as well, is you have to love what you do.
Yeah.
And I will never force anybody into the construction industry who doesn't love it, because there are risks, there's a lot going on, but man, it is, if you love what you do, it can be a very fulfilling and rewarding career for anybody. And I would say that's the most important. And if you love accounting, go be an accountant. If you love pets, go be a veterinarian. But man, if you love construction, embrace it. Get some experience. Go swing a hammer, for a summer, or go to a job site and just look around. But I would say the second thing is, when you do decide to come into the industry, come in and be able and willing to learn.
Yeah.
There's always something you could learn. I spent 4 years in college before kind of building my own house and getting some hands-on experience, but I spent 4 years in college, and I've learned more in the first 4 months of my career at McCarthy than I did those 4 years in college. So, and I had some good grades, I had some great professors, but it's that hands-on, and be humble and be willing to learn from those who teach you.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. And that's one of the things that is very important for us at Construct Reach. And you mentioned that is the experience. And I think exposure is key. Like when you don't have the exposure, when you don't have, the experience, we don't have access maybe sometimes to understand what options are available to you. You could actually be ready to fall in love with this industry, but if you don't have that exposure, then you're kind of forced to pursue other options that you only think are available to you. And so for us being able, and that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing, is being able to provide some sort of exposure, if you will, virtually, the best way that we can, to what the industry has to offer, and just kind of talk through what options and what opportunities are available. So very, very good advice, Nate, just for people just considering the industry. I mean, and I think that's good. That's good advice for anybody pursuing a career, right? Is to, make sure you love what you do, because we spend a lot of our time working, right? When you think about it. And so you definitely want to enjoy what you do, and for it to be rewarding. So very good, very good. So that's a segue, if you will, to some Q&A. You ready for some Q&A, Nate?
Let's see what they got.
Let's see. We'll give it just a couple of seconds for people to gather some of their questions, and then we'll go ahead and answer. Let's see what we have, and we'll look at both platforms. We'll look at Instagram and Facebook. All right. Let's see.
Okay, we have a question.
All right.
Transitioning from college into career, what was one of your biggest challenges?
Oh.
I think just the time management piece. In college, it was, a lot of cramming, a lot of lack of time management. I think trying to balance a social life with what your education is. So coming into your career, being able to have a little bit of time management. And I still am a very determined, dedicated person to whatever cause I'm associated with. So I found myself getting the job very, very early and not leaving until very, very late. And my wife, my kids at the time, it impacted, I think, for those first few years, until I really turned to myself and said, look, there will always be something to do. There will always be something waiting on your desk. But there's always going to be those people waiting at home for you, or whatever some me time, right? So I think balancing your career with what that me time, what that family time, that work-life success. Some people call it a work-life balance. I think in our industry, it's not always balanced. Sometimes it's heavy on the work side, but then it's work hard, play hard. So make sure that we're having that work-life success. And sometimes you got to ebb and flow, but I think that managing your time, I think, is very important.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Another question is, what are some different pathways into the industry?
So I went through, I would say I kind of mixed in two different scenarios where I really came up through the trades. After we built our house, I worked for a framer. I framed some residential houses. Then I got into some concrete work. Then I got into roofing, and I was really, hammer in fist, doing the work. And that gave me some valuable experience. So what then I chose to say, hey, I don't want to be doing this work, although as rewarding as it is. I had some health challenges, and I didn't want that to impact my final career. So I then shifted and said, well, I love building, but I can't really physically do that. So I want to go and manage that work and supervise that work and still be able to see it. So I think there's the career path of college and getting that formal education. But let's not, forget about the internships and the opportunities to get in with the hammer in fist and really kind of getting that experience that way as well. So I think there's really those two couple ways. But there's also technology, right? I mean, technology has blown up, and I think the robotics programs that are out there now, and the VR and AR technology that we use in construction, that we're seeing more and more of that. And I think amid everything going on, the less you can put people together is going to be a focus moving forward to some level.
Yeah. No, that's good, Nate, because we actually got a chance to talk through that a little bit. Where we're seeing this possibly, begin to kind of mainstream and create a surge of integrating technology more so into the industry. And when you think about a generation who's entering into the workforce and all they've known is technology, they're already very technologically savvy. And so it allows them to come in at a very, early stage in their career and to be able to add value as well. And so it's making sure that we get a chance to highlight that. And I'm glad you brought that back up because, especially when you're young and you're kind of back at the bottom of the totem pole and you're trying to find your footing, if you will, and, you're new. I think, you can approach it a little bit more confidently when you can identify a way in which you can add value, and so I think that's very good by mentioning that especially when technology is so important and it's so, I mean, it's everywhere, if you will. And being able to showcase and speak to how, construction has a lot of technology in it, and there's more that's coming, in the near future, then that creates, more intrigue, if you will, for those who want to do something around technology. So no, that's
well, and Paul, I think that brings up another thing that I know you're passionate about is the diversity within the construction industry. Being able, we think of diversity as just your backgrounds, ethnicity, male, female, but the true diversity of thought to get the best outcomes.
mm-hmm.
Don't just have a bunch of construction people sitting in a room trying to figure out a problem. So having the technology folks engaged, having people who understand people, our HR partners and our accounting partners and our legal partners, our quality and safety, having that diversity of thought, that is going to get you to the best outcome every time.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
What advice, Nate, do you have for a young girl trying to own her construction company? All people tell me is that it's a man's job and it's going to be hard to be successful.
Well, I'm saddened by that. I really am, because I think some of the best partners we have are some of our female partners who are excelling in their career. For us here at McCarthy, we established, 5 years ago, I think, our McCarthy Partnership for Women, and it's a group that is not just women, but it's developed for our women to be able to collaborate, to be able to get opportunities to develop themselves and to learn more about themselves and to learn more about how they can be effective in the construction industry. I think if I were to have some advice for this young lady, I had a project engineer on one of my very early jobs as a project manager, and she was probably smarter than any one of the males that was on our staff. She was the only female, but she was very, very reserved. And she would come to me as her manager and ask me questions and say, hey, I don't know what to do about this. And as a manager, I didn't want to just give her the answer. Say, well, what would you do?
Yeah.
She's like, well, I would do this. And I said, well, then do it. Go do it.
Yeah.
Be confident in yourself. And I think this young lady, I would say, have the confidence. You can do anything a male can. And quite frankly, you might be able to do it better because sometimes we just have faults and we resort to things that we probably shouldn't. So I would say go after it. Go after your dream. And if you love that, then go do it. And I promise you'll be successful.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good answer.
What recruiting tools are you currently using to find candidates to fulfill internship opportunities?
What are we not using? So outreach for us is very important. We saw many years ago that our field supervision, the superintendent core of construction, was aging, was getting smaller, and we needed to create an outreach approach that was going to get people to take on some of those roles. So traditionally, it was go to the college career fairs and hire the best, smartest people that you could find. Now it's more than that. It is going to the high schools. It is getting involved in the STEM curriculum. It's getting involved in the community and bringing awareness to people so that they know what's going on. But I'll have you. There's a lot of construction companies right now that have canceled internships for the summer based on, for probably some of the right reasons, but we haven't. If there's anything we learned from 08, 9, and 10 when we had the recession is we can't stop hiring.
Yeah.
Our business is going to be here, and if we stop hiring, we're going to stop growing.
Yeah.
And so I would say we are reaching out to individual schools, to programs. I was driving into work the other day and actually heard a radio ad that we had for some craft labor that we're trying to hire for one of our jobs that we were doing some concrete work on. So we're using all avenues to try to find people and not only hire them, but just to give them awareness, Paul. Much of what your whole mission is let's just bring awareness to what the construction industry has to offer young people so that they can have a rewarding and fulfilling career in it.
Yeah. Good. Oh, that's great, Nate. Well, yeah, guys. So, that pretty much kind of wraps up our series that we've been able to do. Hopefully you guys have found this to be a great resource, a great tool, great insight. Want to take the time to say thank you to Nate for joining us today, all the way from Dallas. I'm pretty sure it's pretty sunny there, man. But yeah, guys, and so, we're actually going to compile all of this. So if you go to constructreach.com, you'll see there's a tab called Get Involved. And if you look for educate, if you go down and you scroll down to educators, you'll see all of the panel discussions will be there. We'll go ahead and get these uploaded for you guys, and they'll just be an ongoing resource that you can tap into and utilize for going forward. So once again, want to say thank you. I mean, that's something that we desire to do with Construct Reach, is to build reachable opportunities through construction, to be able to provide, a social network, a social hub, if you will, with our app, where you can get insight from the industry, you can get resources or what have you. You can find out what options are available to you to put yourself in position to have success. So we continue to do that. We continue to make sure that you guys know that that's available. You'll see all of the different prompts, to enter into the social network. When you go to constructreach.com, you can continue to follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And yes, once again, just want to say thank you, Nate, for taking the time, man. It was a great conversation today. You guys are doing well at McCarthy. It's good to see, right? Full circle, like I mentioned earlier, just being able to close this out with the very first construction companies that I got a chance to internship with during college. So thanks, Nate. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Paul. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Yes, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.